C6 and Fox 28, we're holding a town hall to talk about PTSD and mental health, and we will have experts from suicide prevention, psychiatrists, and PTSD to talk about this important issue when it comes to mental health.
And joining us now is Gabe Howard, who is a motivational speaker on mental health, and Lieutenant Dennis Jeffries, who runs CPD's crisis intervention training. And let's go ahead and start. First of all, we started, talking about how many calls does CPD get on a yearly basis when we're dealing with mental health?
So in 2017, we had approximately 16,000 calls for service, all with the behavioral health theme, or something with that call had a behavioral health component.
And you said those can range from something kind of,
they could
small.
Be
I don't want to say it's small, but
Yeah, someone threatening suicide to someone just having some depression. So they do vary, widely in the scope.
Wow. And Gabe, I want to ask you, what type of crisis intervention training do you guys get or anything?
As somebody who lives with mental illness, we don't get any training whatsoever. People respond to us, and oftentimes we don't even understand what's going on because mental health and mental illness is just not something that's openly talked about in our society. So not only are we sick, we're just as confused as everybody else, and then the police show up. So it's a scary process on every level.
And when you say the police show up, so what kind of training does CPD get, or what do you do to train these officers on how to handle someone with mental health? I'm sure it's quite different.
Right. So every recruit that goes through the academy receives 23 hours. That's the state mandate.
Okay.
What we try to emphasize, though, is the crisis intervention team training, which is additional 40 hours, which is gives more de-escalation skill training, talks about resources, slowing down when you're going on these type of calls, because it does take a lot of time to communicate. So that's something we really emphasize.
Wow. And what is the best way? You said just earlier that you're confused, they're confused, the whole situation could be very chaotic. So what is the best way to treat mental illness?
This would be fantastic. I have thought about this my entire career, because as soon as I figure out the answer to that question, I'll be so rich. Just piles of money will exist in Gabe Howard's bank account. It's different for every person. People are different, situations are different, the way that you respond to these things are different. There really is no clear-cut answer, and I think in many ways that's part of the problem. Society is looking for that simple answer, and they're looking oftentimes for that simple answer from the police, or from the medical establishment, or from the person who is sick. And it's in this way that we're even further behind, because a simple answer just doesn't exist to this problem.
That's why it's a good thing we are having this town hall meeting, get all these experts and just have people just talking about this.
Yeah, we don't talk about it hardly at all. I hate to say it that way, but yeah.
Is that changing at all as people are talking more about it? Are they?
I do think that people are talking about it more. We have CIT now and have for over a decade, and that's a huge improvement from, for example, the 80s. And we're talking about it on the news now, and
right.
that's a huge improvement. But again, this is my favorite analogy. If you get a mortgage for 30 years, at the end of the first year, that's improvement. But you still have 29 more years of mortgage payments to make, so it's sort of difficult to decide, how much do you want to celebrate at the end of your first year of mortgage payments?
And I did want to ask for a law enforcement perspective. How dangerous can it be, when they're so intense and you don't know exactly what they're taking or what's going on? Yeah,
there's certainly, depending on the type of call, but a lot of people do. I think there's this stigma that every one of these calls is violent, and really about 4 to 5% of violent, calls are portrayed by mentally ill people. So I think that's one thing we try to tell the officers, that sure, you have to be safe, but we don't want them going into every call thinking this is going to be extremely violent. It's really time to just slow down, get as much information as you can before you go, and that's why we want to take a lot of reports when we go to these locations, so we have that information when they respond the next time. So yeah.
And I guess when you respond too, you think of compassion when you have to when you go to these calls.
Yeah, when we do the training, perspective is our theme, and we bring in folks like Gabe and also family members and talk about their experiences. So it's really important to understand that there's behind these calls there's a family, there's a lot of things going on that we don't know about. So we want to make sure they understand that perspective.
Well, thanks so much. We appreciate the insights, and we're glad that everyone's talking about this. And again, this Tuesday, ABC 6 is hosting a town hall about suicide and other mental health issues. It's at Riverside Hospital.
And we will have a number of experts on hand. And if you're interested in attending, go to abc6onyourside.com.